Bună ziua și bun găsit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Observator la Parlamentul European. Invitatul de astăzi, de aici, de la Strasbourg, este eurodeputatul englez Clare Moody. Hello, thank you for accepting this interview for the Romanian public television. To begin with, I would like to ask you a more personal question. Moody is a well-known name. Dr. Moody is the one who wrote the book Life After Life. Raymond Moody is the father of modern near-death experience. Do you have anything to do with Dr. Moody?
I don't. My father is Raymond Moody, but not that Raymond Moody. He's a different one.
So it's a question you often have.
Yes, it's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
There have been some astonishing Moodies. I'm not necessarily related to any of them.
I would like to talk to you about Brexit, which is probably the most important event of the moment. How was this situation reached where the British society is divided? Is it a decision of the elites, an unexpected incident of the Cameron government, an anti-German decision? What is it?
So there are a lot of reasons that we're in the situation we're in now. One of them goes back over years and years and years, and that's a failure to report correctly what's going on at a European level to British citizens. We haven't had the same kind of media coverage that you're giving to Romanian citizens around the European Union. There was also an issue that, referendums are rarely decided on just what's on the paper. So, we had 6 years of austerity up before the referendum, the date of the referendum. So people were fed up with the way the country had been governed. So they were kicking out against a system that they felt didn't deliver for them. So that again is another reason. But also, there were lots of promises. It's commonly referred to in the UK now that there were lots of unicorns on the ballot paper, mythical beasts. Nobody actually defined what leaving the European Union was going to be like. And that is part of the reason why we have these divisions that are going on and on and on now.
Could people imagine what's happening now? Could it be foreseen?
No. No, nobody foresaw the situation that's happened to my country since. So, and if they had, I don't believe they would have voted the way they did in the referendum. Nobody is relishing the depth of the divides, the uncertainty, and frankly, the political chaos that we're going through at this point in the UK.
What will happen if there will be no agreement with the European Union? What options has the UK?
As the law stands right now, then we leave on the 29th of March with or without a deal, and that's the exit date. I actually don't think the politics in my country are so broken that we will leave with no deal. I mean, the damage that would cause to citizens, to the British public, is frankly unacceptable. So I genuinely think that Parliament, the MPs in general, will take control of the situation if it looks like Theresa May is going to try to drive the country off a cliff edge. So I believe we will resist that. So then it becomes about, right, okay, what are the options at that point?
But what does the UK want from a new agreement? Because Mrs. Theresa May was asked to obtain another agreement.
Yeah, that is what we might call the $64,000 question. And what does the government want? Because Theresa May said before Christmas, when she'd done the withdrawal agreement, this is the only deal possible. This is the final deal. Vote for this deal. There's nothing else on the table. And then we saw a fortnight ago, she tells the House of Commons, actually, I don't believe this deal is the only deal anymore. I'm going to go and change this deal. And she voted against a deal she said had been the last deal. It's, it's that level of uncertainty, it's that lack of definition that is leading to the point where we're 6 weeks away from the end of the Article 50 ordinary timescale, and the government are still not defining what leave looks like. Because don't forget, the withdrawal agreement is simply about the terms of our departure. The political declaration is a sort of a hollow document in many ways with kind of vague promises about what the future relationship will look like. We aren't anywhere near concluding our future relationship with the EU.
So you don't know what will contain a new agreement?
No.
Nobody knows yet.
The 585-page withdrawal agreement is sorting out the divorce.
Yes.
The 26-page political declaration isn't a legal document in the same way the withdrawal agreement is, and it also is full of aspirational language. We would like to have this kind of relationship, if this is possible, that kind of language. But the transition period between now and the end of 2020, possibly 2021, is when the negotiations will happen about what relationship we have with the customs union, single market, research programs, all of these different things.
So what will happen to Romanian citizens and those from other countries after Brexit, other European countries?
It's been one of my frustrations on both sides of the channel, but I can certainly hold this against the UK government, is the UK government should have said from day one that the EU 27 citizens that are living and working and part of our families and communities in the UK should have been given the absolute security that their position is the same. Come what may, all our European citizens, Romanian citizens and from other countries around the EU should have that level of security. And I deal with a lot of casework from people who are very stressed about the uncertainty that this is causing to their lives and families.
And also for British people living abroad, no?
Yeah, which is where the EU 27 could have settled that position for them in terms of all of those agreements as well. And I agree that, you know, both ways. British citizens in the EU who, you know, have lived here for years in, you know, various countries, more than one possibly, we have all taken for granted our freedom of movement. And I'm sure a lot of people value it a lot more now, but we need to sustain that into the future. It is a huge benefit to my country that we have Romanian citizens living and working and loving and studying in the UK, and I hope that that will last long into the future.
And they will stay there if possible.
I hope so.
Yes. What will happen to military collaboration? UK will be in the NATO, but not in the European Union. It is not a novelty. Canada and the US are in the same situation. What will happen?
Yeah, it is. It's vital that we come up with a security treaty. If the UK leaves the EU, then we have to have a security treaty because we cooperate and collaborate on so many different levels in the security field. Some of it is done through EU legislation and EU institutions because you can't just strip out the criminal activity from the security and other activity as well. It operates in a kind of ecosystem, if you like. So we need to keep as closely involved as possible in all these areas, both the, you know, in the security field, one that's very close to my heart as the Vice Chair of the Security and Defence Committee, but also in the other areas where we work together on criminal collaboration and that activities, you know, combating criminal activity.
Do you think that in the Brexit campaign, fake news had a role?
Yes. Yes, and it's there's different levels of this activity. So we already know it's been sort of factually decided that there was an impact through Cambridge Analytica and how they used Facebook data, and they used it illegally. And you know, if we had had GDPR, then there would have been much bigger fines than the maximum, I think, £80,000 fine that was levelled and as a consequence of that misuse. But there's also this, there was a deliberate spreading of misinformation. You know, one of the campaigns was, you know, kind of talking about people flooding into the UK and was deliberately twisting information and, you know, and actually, frankly, either not understanding or deliberately misleading citizens about the reality of the European Union. So you've got deliberate misinformation, deliberate intent to deceive people, but also then you've got within that just people talking about unicorns, pretending we can have everything without any payment for it and that side of things. So frustration at every level through that campaign.
How is the level of fake news now during Brexit?
So it goes on. We haven't done enough yet, and I think this is true for the European Union as a whole. There is not enough in place yet to enable our citizens to have confidence in everything that kind of appears on their screens, if you like. We need more transparency about the source of information that comes through, about who's paying for it. Which again the platforms are now beginning to take seriously and look at and putting things in place to tackle that. So these are major issues that are beginning to be addressed, but there's a lot more that we need to do.
Yes, does the European Union make enough in this direction now, at least?
Yeah, so yes. We've had some proposals. We're starting to work through on this. Like I said, working with the platforms around that transparency point, because we shouldn't underestimate the value of the internet, the value for all of us of that freedom of access. The fact that we all use the search engines and that kind of thing, that matters. But we need people to have the information to make a discerning choice about the stories that are put in front of them, and that is where we have a role to play at a European Union level to facilitate that freedom of information, but that understanding of the accuracy and the source of the information.
Are you personally in favor of Brexit or for staying in the European Union?
I am thoroughly in favour of staying in the European Union. I would love my country have made a different choice in 2016. Actually, I think now we know so much more than we knew in 2016. I think it would be legitimate for the people of my country, once they have the terms of what leaving the European Union looks like, to have a right to go, okay, this is or isn't what we want the future of our country to be. I think there is a space to have a referendum on the outcome of the negotiations, and that's what should happen.
Is it possible?
Everything is possible. It's still possible, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, and I and many of my colleagues in the UK are campaigning for that.
Okay. What will happen to Ireland after Brexit? Will the two Irelands join together? Will there be a border between the UK and the European Union, and implicitly between UK and the Northern Ireland?
So the Good Friday Agreement is one of the things that never really got discussed in the referendum campaign, and certainly not to the extent that we're having to deal with it now. And that is a huge issue. It's one of the proudest achievements of my Labour government post-1997, is that we delivered peace in Northern Ireland, and it is essential that we maintain that peace and we preserve that peace agreement. And that means we have to avoid a hard border. There is some detail around that in the withdrawal agreement, around the famous backstop,
yes.
Which is an insurance policy, not necessarily the future, but we have to keep that border open and free moving, however that's worked.
What will happen to Scotland? Will it remain in the European Union or will separate from the UK?
I want the whole of the UK to stay as the UK, but I am not about to pull out a crystal ball. I didn't predict us leaving the European Union. I would not want to see Scotland or Northern Ireland leave the UK, but it will ultimately be down to the people of those countries what they do. And it has to be said that leaving the European Union makes another independence referendum in Scotland and what's called a border poll in both Northern Ireland and in Éire. They're both more likely if we leave the European Union against the wishes of the people in Scotland and Northern Ireland, because both of those countries voted to remain in the EU.
Yes, what will happen to Gibraltar? There is also a conflict with Spain on that matter.
Gibraltar is very close to my heart. I represent Gibraltar in the European Parliament. It's part of my region.
Yes.
And the people of Gibraltar voted 96% to remain in the EU. In an earlier referendum, they voted 99% to remain as UK citizens. So it is really unfortunate. The border between Spain and Gibraltar opened up when Spain joined the European Union in the mid-1980s. And I think one of the things we are going to have to work really hard through this process of Brexit is to make sure that that border stays open, that people can cross that border freely, that that Gibraltar is allowed to keep a very close relationship with the European Union. For its geography necessitates that, as well as its close relationship with the UK. The people of Gibraltar are a fabulous, resilient people, and they deserve to get the best that we can out of this.
And my last question, what role could Romania play in this complicated process, Brexit?
There's a long-standing friendship between the UK and Romania, and whatever happens with our future relationship to the EU, then I would want us, our countries, to keep close ties and our citizens to keep close ties. So, I can't expect Romania to, act unilaterally because you're part of the EU 27,
yes,
as well as the EU 28, as we still are. So, but I would want, whatever the future holds, for our citizens and our countries to remain good friends.
Mrs. Deputy, thank you very much.
Thank you.